The small Filipino supply boat crept across the South China Sea, its mission clear deliver vital supplies to soldiers stationed on the BRP Sierra Madre, a rusting outpost on 2nd Thomas Shoal. Suddenly, massive Chinese Coast Guard ships appeared, moving to block the Filipino boat. The radio crackled with warnings in Chinese, "Turn back." The Chinese ships closed in, their engines churning up waves that battered the smaller vessel. Filipino sailors braced themselves, determined to complete their mission. Without warning, a high-pressure water cannon blasted the supply boat, smashing equipment and drenching the crew. Another Chinese ship scraped dangerously close, its steel hull grinding against the wooden boat. This was no ordinary resupply, it was a battle of nerves and resolve. The Filipinos pressed on, defending their nation's claim with their presence alone. These tense standoffs have become routine, a David versus Goliath struggle in one of the world's most contested waterways. China's tactics are forceful, but the Filipinos refuse to back down. Each encounter is a reminder. Even a simple supply run can become a flashpoint for international conflict. The world is watching as the South China Sea becomes a stage for high-stakes confrontation. Here, sovereignty is defended not just with weapons, but with courage and determination. The South China Sea is a global lifeline. Over $3 trillion in trade flows through its waters every year. Beneath the surface lie vast reserves of oil, gas, and some of the world's richest fishing grounds, essential for millions in Southeast Asia. Control of these resources means economic power and food security. China claims almost the entire sea, using its 9-dash line to assert control far beyond its shores, overlapping with the exclusive economic zones of neighbors like the Philippines and Vietnam. The Philippines, with its thousands of islands, calls this area the West Philippine Sea and bases its claims on international law. The real fight is over resources, national pride, and the rules that govern the world's oceans. When China's sweeping claims clash with its neighbors' rights, the stakes go far beyond fish and oil. This is why remote reefs have become the center of a global power struggle. The outcome will shape the future of Asia, and the world's access to these vital waters. China enforces its claims with gray zone tactics, aggression just short of war. Chinese Coast Guard ships use water cannons strong enough to shatter windows and injure crews, targeting Philippine vessels on routine missions. They block, ram, and dangerously maneuver, turning the sea into a high-stakes game of intimidation. China's maritime militia, fishing boats in name only, swarm disputed areas, blocking Filipino fishermen and asserting control. In recent clashes, Chinese personnel have boarded Philippine boats, wielding knives and spears, leaving sailors injured. Military-grade lasers have been used to blind crews, escalating the danger. By using Coast Guard and militia instead of the Navy, China frames these confrontations as law enforcement, not military aggression. The goal: make it too risky for the Philippines to maintain its presence, hoping Manila will eventually give up. These relentless tactics test the resolve of Filipino sailors every day. The message is clear: China wants control without firing a shot. In 2013, the Philippines took China to international court, challenging the legality of the 9-dash line. The Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague heard the case, with the Philippines arguing that China's claims had no basis under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. China refused to participate, insisting the court had no authority. In July 2016, the tribunal ruled overwhelmingly in favor of the Philippines. The court declared China's 9-dash line invalid and affirmed the Philippines' rights to resources in its exclusive economic zone, including 2nd Thomas Shoal. The ruling was legally binding, but China angrily rejected it, calling it waste paper. Beijing continued to assert its claims, ignoring international law. The world saw a test of the rules that keep the seas open and peaceful. By defying the ruling, China set the stage for more conflict, and a global debate over the future of the South China Sea. The Philippines had won a legal victory, but the struggle on the water was far from over. The law was clear, but enforcement would prove much harder. Even before the court ruling, China was transforming the South China Sea. Using giant dredgers, it built artificial islands atop reefs in the Spratlys, creating over 3,200 acres of new land. These weren't tourist spots, they were military outposts. China constructed runways, deep-water ports, barracks, and radar systems, turning reefs into unsinkable bases. Satellite images revealed anti-ship and surface-to-air missiles, giving China the power to threaten any ship or plane nearby. This military buildup lets China project force across the entire sea, challenging the Philippines and other claimants. Mischief Reef, ruled part of the Philippines' exclusive zone, is now a Chinese fortress. By building these bases, China changed the facts on the water, making its presence permanent. The artificial islands are a bold statement. China intends to stay, no matter what the law says. The balance of power in the South China Sea has been physically and permanently altered. As China's pressure grew, the Philippines turned to its oldest ally, the United States. The 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty promises that an attack on one is an attack on both. For years, it was unclear if this covered the South China Sea, but now US leaders have made it explicit. Any armed attack on Philippine forces or vessels in these waters could trigger American military support. This warning raises the stakes for China, making any escalation a global risk. The alliance is more than words. Joint military exercises have expanded, and the US now has access to more Philippine bases, some near Taiwan and the South China Sea. The US pre-positions equipment and rotates forces, ready to respond quickly to any crisis. The annual Balikatan exercises now involve thousands of troops, practicing defense of Philippine territory. The alliance has grown to include Japan and Australia, with joint patrols showing a united front. These partnerships send a clear message. The South China Sea is not China's alone. The Philippines is no longer isolated, it stands with powerful friends. Any attack here could spark a much larger conflict. The balance of power has shifted and China must now think twice. The Philippines knows it can't rely on allies alone. Once focused on internal threats, its military is now modernizing fast. A $35 billion program is bringing in new warships, fighter jets, and surveillance systems. The focus, asymmetric capabilities, missiles and tech that can inflict heavy losses on a bigger foe. The BrahMos supersonic missile, bought from India, lets the Philippines threaten enemy ships far from shore. New patrol boats and US-backed upgrades are boosting the Navy and Coast Guard. The US has provided advanced missile systems for joint exercises, showing how the two militaries can work together. These upgrades make the Philippines a tougher target, raising the cost of any attack. The message to China: the Philippines can and will fight back. Modernization is turning the country from a weak link into a credible regional force. The Philippines has turned transparency into a weapon. Instead of hiding confrontations, it publicizes every Chinese provocation. Photos, videos, and eyewitness accounts flood the media. Journalists are embedded on missions, exposing China's tactics to the world. This name and shame strategy has shifted global opinion, making it harder for China to deny or downplay its actions. International sympathy and support have surged, with countries like Japan, Australia, and the UK condemning China's aggression. More navies now patrol the region, reinforcing the principle of open seas. By controlling the narrative, the Philippines has made every Chinese move a global event. In the information age, telling the story is as powerful as holding the line at sea. Today, the South China Sea is a standoff. China remains the dominant force, but the Philippines is no longer an easy target. US support acts as a powerful deterrent. Any attack could trigger a global conflict. Allies like Japan and Australia add another layer of protection. The Philippines' new missiles and modernized forces make invasion costly and risky. Its transparency strategy has won global backing, isolating China diplomatically. For now, neither side wants war, but the days of easy Chinese dominance are over. The Philippines stands firm, backed by alliances and its own growing strength. The world is watching, and every move is under scrutiny. The struggle for the South China Sea isn't over, but the balance of power has changed. Courage, alliances, and smart strategy have given the Philippines a fighting chance.